Hi, everybody. Not Poolside Chat number 10, I think. We are still in Mind Gym by Gary Mack. I think we're going to finish it today. So I have done 2 interviews now. The first one with Townley, the second one with Ryan Murphy, and I've asked them 16 questions that I developed from reading some of these books about mental game. It's all really interesting to hear their answers compared to what psychologists and these books are saying. So I really highly recommend to listen to their interviews in conjunction with listening to these talks. The bottom line, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. Wayne Gretzky. Sylvie Bernier had a history of caving in during pressure situations, but now she stood on the top of the platform, beaming, as the French-Canadian springboard diver turned her eyes to her country's flags and sang the national anthem. The only thing that kept her from rising off the medal stand and floating away like a party balloon was the anchoring weight of the gold medal around her neck. The experience was everything Sylvie had hoped it would be. From the moment she arrived at the pool, her day went exactly as she had imagined and rehearsed over and over in her mind. I knew I was going to dive the 6th of August at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in the finals. I knew where the scoreboard was going to be on my left. I knew where my coaches were going to be sitting. Everything was in my head. I knew where the crowd was going to be. I could see my dives exactly how I wanted them to be. When I went to the podium, I'd seen it before. It was like deja vu. The 20-year-old champion from Quebec won because she came to the biggest event of her life fortified with what every athlete needs: confidence. What do you think the most important part of the mental game is? It's a question I've asked hundreds of managers, coaches, and professional athletes during plane rides and bus rides to stadiums over the past 20 years. The answer is always the same. It's confidence. When you're confident, you can relax, trust your stuff, and perform at your best. Confidence is the bottom line. Where does confidence come from? Great athletes say that confidence is knowing that they prepared physically and mentally. Experience tells them what to do, and confidence allows them to do it. Confidence is the emotional knowing that you are prepared, mind, body, and spirit for anything. So Townley and Ryan both have an unwavering confidence if you listen to their talks. Ryan yesterday talked about going into these meets and just being confident, knowing that he had done everything that he could do, and that he's not nervous. He's nervous 2 months out. He's confident the day of. The head of the Phoenix Fire Department told me that confidence is knowing what to do when you don't know what to do. Confidence is the result of preparation, and preparation begins with forming a mental game plan. The great athletes visualize not only best case scenarios, but also worst case scenarios. They don't imagine failing, but they do mentally plan how they will respond in an unpleasant or difficult situation. Again, really interesting, because Ryan also touched on that yesterday, that if he gets a cramp in practice, if he chokes on water, that he teaches himself how to push through those things so that he is prepared at competition for anything that happens. He's already choked on water and kept going. He's already had a cramp and figured out how to deal with it. So he is preparing for the worst every day that he trains. Just as you wouldn't go into a swim meet without practice, don't go into your competition without taking mental practice. Confidence comes from the emotional knowing that you are prepared mentally and physically. Over-prepare so you don't underperform. Next chapter. Trust your stuff. Be decisive. A wrong decision is generally less disastrous than an indecision. Bernard Langer. Successful athletes trust their talents. They are committed to every swing, every stroke. The best advice I can give is that it's better to be decisive than right. The late Harvey Pinnock, one of the game's most revered instructors, said if you're indecisive, if you have doubts, if there is a lack of commitment in your mind, how is your body going to know what to do? We have all seen what can happen to the most talented athletes. Under pressure, they sometimes become tentative and indecisive. They don't trust their stuff. Doubts can cause intellectual confusion. Doubts can be paralyzing. It is said that a person who doubts himself is like a man who would enlist in the ranks of his enemies and bear arms against himself. Confidence and trust are essential in every sport. The habits of success are formed in practice. In practice, you learn the art of concentration. In practice, you learn to train your brain as well as your body. Sam Snead said practice time is when you put your brain into your muscles. The conscious practice of routines leads to the unconscious habits of success. A routine is something you do regularly that you control and has a purpose. You must be 100% committed to action. If there are doubts in your mind, your muscles won't know what to do. Let your routines switch you from thinking mode to trusting mode. So homework for this is, what are you confident in at meets? White moments. Every time I step on the basketball court, I never know what will happen. I live for the moment. I play for the moment. Michael Jordan. When I'm in my groove, there is no thinking. Everything just happens. Ozzie Smith. Many people who play sports long enough or work at their craft hard enough experience these magical moments where their training and trust in themselves come together in perfect harmony. Their performance flows smoothly, effortlessly, and almost unconsciously. This heightened level of performance, Michael Jordan described it as the reward for years of hard work and preparation, is unexplainable. Sometimes these special moments seem to happen as if by grace. Perhaps you have experienced a competition where everything falls into place, like tumblers in a wall safe. You feel like pinching yourself to verify you're not dreaming. At times you want to break out laughing while telling yourself, this is unreal. I'm not this good. But at that moment and place, you are. All great athletes know the feeling. They use different words to describe it. They're on autopilot, they're tuned in total control, in the groove, locked. The Japanese baseball players have their own word for it, mushin. Loosely translated, it means no mind. Tennis star Arthur Ashe called it playing in the zone. When you're in the zone, you have switched from training mode to trusting mode. You're not fighting yourself. You're not afraid of anything. You're living in the moment in a special place and time. As a certified hypnotist, I see similarities between people who are in trance and in a performance zone. At age 13, Tiger Woods worked with a sports psychologist who taught him how to use hypnosis to block out his conscious mind and to strengthen his focus and resolve. Have you ever experienced white moments? Can you recall a time when you weren't concerned about the opponent or the outcome and were simply living in the moment and performing at your best? There's no better feeling in sports. The harder you try to get in the zone, the further away you get. The zone is the reward for your hard work and preparation. Just go with the flow and enjoy the moment. Have you ever experienced a white moment? Paralysis by analysis. Slumps are like a soft bed, easy to get into and hard to get out of. Sports is a roller coaster. It's a series of performance peaks and valleys, ups and downs, twists and turns. If an athlete's best day is a zone experience, then the worst day is one in which he or she is muddled in a slump, which is a natural cycle in sports. Athletes who begin to struggle start overanalyzing. They hear that monkey Richie Zisk talked about chattering in their head. They start thinking too much. In a Peanuts cartoon, Snoopy commends Woodstock on making a perfect landing on the roof of his doghouse. Then he begins quizzing the tiny yellow bird about aerodynamics. Now, when you take off again, do you push with your feet or do you flap your wings first? Do you flap your wings and then sort of lean into it? Or do you, in the next panel, Woodstock has disappeared, having dropped straight to the ground with a clunk after takeoff. Snoopy put the lesson learned into words. If you think about it, you can't do it. Overthinking often leads to over-trying. The key to overcoming a slump is finding a difference that will make a difference. Usually this means doing less rather than more. Sports is filled with up and downs. Remember, the first rule of holes is to stop digging. Go back to the basics and keep things simple. Have you ever been in a slump? And if so, how did you get out of it? Paradoxes of performances. Sometimes you have to get worse before you get better. A paradox is defined as a seemingly contradictory statement that may nonetheless be true. So this chapter talks about how sports have had to change in order to move forward. So the Fosbury flop became a new technique in American invented, and people have been jumping higher than they ever have before then. Same thing with underwater kicks and swimming. Sports is always changing. Just as the game changes, athletes must be willing to make changes and adjustments. This isn't always easy. Same thing with the new underwater pullouts. That's been new since most of you have started swimming. As we talked about earlier, by making needed adjustments in your game, your performance may suffer temporarily. You will have to be willing to get worse before you can get better, which is one of the paradoxes of sports we will discuss. So we have done this a lot with you guys. I've had swimmers change their strokes, try to work on having more catch, try to change breathing patterns or rhythms. and you get really frustrated because you're going slower. Maybe at the next meet you add, but sometimes we have to take a step back to fix what we're doing in order to take that next step forward. Sports is a game of balances. An example I use is that people who are sick take medicine to get well, but too much medicine can be poisonous or even fatal. In school, kids are taught if they don't succeed, then try again. I tell athletes, yes, try again, don't give up, but maybe try something different, perhaps do the opposite. Many coaches are rigid and inflexible in their thinking. Everything is black and white. It isn't. Sports can be both black and white, like the Oriental yin-yang symbol. I try to teach any performer to play in the gray and to understand and accept the paradoxical nature of sports. We have also talked about paradoxes quite a bit, about different athletes, different trainings, different race plans, and how sometimes they can become paradoxical, which can be very frustrating when we want everything to be very logical. And a lot of times we talk about after races and after practice, if you didn't do what you wanted to do, what are you going to change? Because there is no failure if you are learning from what you've done and know what the next move is. So here are 10 examples of paradoxes. Less can be more. Sometimes the highest form of action is inaction. Athletes require rest and recovery time. Without it, they become stale, burned out, and more susceptible to injuries. In this book, we quote Vince Lombardi saying, "The harder you work, the harder it is to surrender." So how can not working as hard possibly be an advantage? So then it talks about the Arizona Cardinals had lost 3 games in a row. So they decided to hold practice every day, including Thanksgiving Day, and no one wanted to be there, and they resented it. So they went through a half-hearted practice, and their star defensive back, Tim McDonald, blew out his knee and missed the remainder of the season. The harder you try to get into the zone, the further away you get. We talked about this in the white moments section. Train hard, but then let the performance flow naturally. Don't try to make something happen. Just trust your stuff and let it happen. So Ryan talked about this yesterday with me, how 2 months out he's nervous because he still has a lot of variables he can control. But once he's there, he just lets it happen. It's done. What's done is done at that point. So just race and do your best. Trying easier can be harder. Many athletes put too much muscle into their performance in an attempt to create power. Oftentimes, over-muscling is self-defeating. 100% true in swimming. So I had a swimmer really trying to get the Olympic trials cut, went to sectionals and tried as hard as he could in the morning, was 0.2 off, was really disappointed, and had thrown up after the race, basically said, this is all that I'm physically capable of. So that's when we went to, so how can we do less and have it be more? How can we switch what we're doing to swim it differently tonight? So he decided he was going to slow, this was 100 backstroke, he was going to slow his tempo down a little bit and hold a little bit more water in finals. So in finals, he went basically the exact same time, still missed his cut, but came over and said that it was 80% easier, that he didn't vomit afterwards. He felt so much better. And so he felt like he learned something in identifying a tempo that worked for him, and then he could work around that to find that 0.25 to get to the cut, which he did eventually. Over control gets you out of control, or you can gain control by giving up control. Slowing down can make you faster. Learning this paradoxical truth, some have found while training that if you do pace instead of race, be quick but never hurry, you're actually faster. Fear of failure makes failure more likely. Fear creates tension and affects coordination and rhythm. The chances of success become diminished as you become fearful. Playing it safe can be dangerous, or the greatest risk sometimes is not taking a risk. By playing it safe, athletes are reluctant to make the adjustments necessary to move up to the next level of competition. A step backward is a step forward. Sometimes you have to get worse to become better. We just talked about that. The probability of getting the outcome you want increases when you let go of the need to get it. The more you want to achieve a goal, the more expectations you set upon yourself. Give yourself permission to win, but then let go of the idea of winning and focus on the execution and the process. So this is the example we've done before. You need to get a senior champs cut. So your goal is to go that time. So boys 100 freestyle senior champs cut is $49.99 short course. So you're a boy, you say, I want to go for $49.99. I need to get the senior champs cut. So give yourself permission to go $49.99, but then think about how you're going to go $49.99 instead of just the time. Understand the paradoxical nature of sports. Learn to play in the gray. Sometimes you have to get worse before you get better. Choice, not chance. Consistency is what counts. You have to do things over and over again. Hank Aaron. Sports psychology is especially prescribed for two kinds of athletes. Some perform well in practice but break down in competition because they become self-conscious or over-anxious. Others possess worlds of talent but can't perform consistently. Consistency separates good athletes from great ones. The best athletes win consistently because they think, act, and practice consistently. Consistency is a defining quality. Whatever your job, consistency is the hallmark. It's much more important than doing something spectacular just once. Do your job consistently and you will be considered good. The greatest athletes are those who can perform at a high level day in and day out, even when they don't feel well or they are off their game. So this is written for swimmers. Being a consistent swimmer is a check mark you can make that will make you so much better than everyone else, no matter what, right off the bat. So the kids that are coming to 4:30 a.m. practices, the ones that are consistently there every day are going to be better, and they are better. They have off days when they come. They have days where they don't want to be there, or they're tired, or they didn't get enough sleep. But the consistency in their brain and their character and their performance always gives them a leg up above everybody else. Maintain the warrior mentality. Stand tall even if you feel you are coming apart on the inside, and carry yourself in a confident way. All performers can act themselves into a way of thinking, just as they can think themselves into a way of acting. Mental attitude is always important. So fake it until you make it. To perform consistently, you must prepare consistently. Act the way you want to become until you become the way you want to act. Inner excellence. The quality of a person's life is in direct proportion to their commitment to excellence, regardless of their chosen field. So no matter what you are doing, do it well. Hold yourself to a standard and have integrity. Aristotle said, excellence is not a singular act, but a habit. You are what you repeatedly do. Obviously, not everyone who reads this book is going to become a world-class athlete like those quoted in these pages, but each of us can be an MVP, a most valuable person. It doesn't take exceptional talent, education, or wealth to become an MVP. One becomes an MVP by achieving excellence within. Inner excellence is a way of thinking and a way of acting. It is a quality of mind, a mentality that says no matter how difficult things become, you are responsible and accountable for your thoughts, feelings, and actions. Inner excellence is staying positive in negative situations. It is dealing with adversity in an optimistic way. It is finding love and joy in what you do and remaining steadfastly committed to your goals, values, and dreams. It's staying cool when the heat is on. People with inner excellence look at a competition as a challenge. They are motivated by a desire to succeed rather than a fear of failure. They possess an unconditional high self-esteem and self-image. They have a can-do attitude and a will to prepare to win. They believe the harder they work, the harder it is to surrender. They don't quit or play the blame game, and they look after the smallest detail to go the extra mile. They are big enough to back down from trouble and strong enough to be kind, fair, and honest. Excellence goes beyond winning and losing. Inner excellence can't be taken away by a referee or an opponent or the final tick of a clock. Western society is externally oriented. We are always going outside of ourselves to find validation and heroes and to measure success. We look outside for what only can be found inside. An MVP works on the inside, knowing that it will show on the outside. Let's review 10 qualities of inner excellence. The person who is a winner within has a dream. Eleanor Roosevelt said the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Commitment. MVPs are committed to their goals. They live their lives on purpose. Responsibility. Those who achieve inner excellence are response-able. They don't let what they can't do interfere with what they can do. Openness to learning and growing. An MVP turns weaknesses into strengths, which means constant daily improvement. Learn how to play with the paradoxes of sports. We don't grow old, we get old by not growing. Optimism. A positive mental attitude is essential to becoming the hero that is within you. Self-confidence. No one can outperform his or her self-image. Athletes with inner excellence believe in themselves and their abilities. Part of responsibility psychology is knowing that no one can take away self-esteem without your permission. Have the courage to grow up and fulfill your potential. Emotional control. Being able to look back on something and ask yourself if it was appropriate, did it serve you well, and was it a mature thing to do? The adversity quotient. An MVP looks at obstacles as opportunities and views setbacks as springboards for comebacks. MVPs see stumbling blocks as stepping stones. Those with inner excellence possess the backbone of character. They practice good sportsmanship. They pick people up. They don't put them down. They walk their talk. They live by their principles. If you don't stand for something, you can fall for anything. If you stay in the middle of the road, the chances of getting hit are doubled. An MVP is persistent and patient. Don't give up on your dream. Don't let others dissuade you. Hang out with the people who stoke your fire, not stoke your fire. When times are good, be grateful. When times are bad, be graceful. Working on the inside shows on the outside. What lies ahead of us or behind us is a little matter to what lies within us. That's a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote. The hero within. Every time your back is against the wall, there's only one person that can help you, and that's you. It comes from the inside. Pat Riley. Ralph Waldo Emerson. A hero is no braver than the ordinary person. He is just braver 5 minutes longer. Sports is more than a contest of physical abilities. As the ancient Greeks knew, sports also test courage, which comes from the Latin word meaning heart. And it's the human heart where the hero within us lives. The rich tapestry of sports is woven with the threads of heroes. Playing from the heart, people overcome adversity, beat the odds, or take their game to a new level. Competitive sports can bring out the best in people. Instead of playing small, they overcome their self-doubts and fears. They let their light shine. They find courage, which is the opposite of discourage, and tap into their reservoir or potential. Reflect a moment. Can you remember a time when you were a hero? When you showed heart, courage, and fearlessness that maybe you didn't know you didn't have? There is no mold from which heroes are formed. They come in all sizes, all shapes, all ages, and all walks of life. Some people think that successful persons are born that way. I'm here to tell you that a champion is someone who has fallen off the horse a dozen times and gotten back on the horse a dozen times. Successful people never give up. The well-played game. Sports can do so much. It's given me confidence, self-esteem, discipline, and motivation. Mia Hamm. The late Tom Landry, former coach of the Dallas Cowboys, said sports are a great teacher. I wholeheartedly agree. The world of sports is both a classroom and a laboratory. Through competition, we learn from a young age the value of training, practice, and discipline, as well as the meaning of fair play. Sports teach us how to persevere, how to deal with adversity, how to become part of a single heartbeat that defines a team. Sports teach lessons in leadership, respect, and courage. In sports, unlike other more vague areas of life, there is a scoreboard, time limits, rules, and a level playing field. At the recreational level, sports are about doing your best and having fun. Unfortunately, coaches, parents, and even young athletes who take cues from adults often forget the purpose of competition. They look at professional sports, which is a business, winning and losing, and translates into dollars and cents. Americans are obsessed with winning. In our society, if you don't win, then you're a loser. Fans are unforgiving. We need to redefine winning. Vince Lombardi says, winning isn't everything, but making the effort to win is. A winner is one who walks away from competition knowing he has done his best, irregardless of place, rank, or standing. So Ryan talked about that yesterday too, where he doesn't have to get first. And he had talked about this in another interview too, where it's not getting first that's always necessarily the most important, but doing his best. So if he goes the best time and doesn't get first, he's still going to be happy because that was his best. That's what he could do right then. It doesn't mean he's not going to go back to the drawing board and work harder, but he still lets himself have that moment of celebration that he went a best time. He did something well. He did his best, even if it wasn't a win. The big win. I may win and I may lose, but I will never be defeated. Emmett Smith. We don't know what the future holds for any of us, so why not act as if you're going to have a great future? Set your goals, do the work. While positive thinking doesn't always work, negative thinking unfortunately almost always does. The last lesson is the most important. Don't let your fears get in the way of your dreams. Don't let what you can't do interfere with what you can do. The greatest victory is the victory over ourselves. Remember, it's always too soon to quit. All right, done with Mind Gym. Yay! I can't decide what book to do next. This book is really interesting, but I think it would be hard to do in this format. But I don't know. We'll see. So good job if you've listened to all these. If you haven't, there's still time. But you wouldn't be listening to this because you haven't watched it. So number 11 will be on a new book. And I'll see everybody at Zooms and Drylands this week.